Okay. I wanted to make a quick video just to explain a couple things about this boss because I feel like it needs the explanation, or at least the explanation will be able to help. Um, I first wanted to look at the sort of breakdown of abilities and what exactly we're going to need to do to like do this successfully. So if you look at the P1s, they're obviously exactly the same from each other, excluding the Enrage. But how this fight goes is it's going to obviously there's a dot at the beginning, like this huge raid dot that the healers are healing, and then we get the debuffs. These first set of debuffs are going to get picked up by healers. Um, Before I get too much into the debuffs, basically the way this works is we have Fracture, I beam, followed by the Tank Buster that needs to get swapped at like the end of the I beam, and then we have some dodging, heal absorbs, and then after those go out, we get gripped in, we have the hunts, and then it just repeats that 2 times. Um, so a lot of things kind of need to happen here, um, mainly revolving around debuffs and the hunt. So if I go over to my raid plan, obviously this is what the arena is going to look like. Obviously there's like a big circle, but as we're like going in here, we have like the fractures would need to just get picked up immediately because the tank takes zero healing. The tank is unable to get healed while all 3 fractures are out. They get the tank buster, they do their thing. Then we get the heal absorbs. We have a couple seconds to get gripped in. Once we get gripped in, we're going to have 3 groups. Um, and if the first hunt will always be like right on top of the demon hunter. So this person who's targeted by the first hunt just needs to run extended as far as they can. And everyone who is not in the first group needs to move like away. So what was happening a lot yesterday is people were just kind of like staying in this area when what needs to happen is they need to run away from the boss by the time the second or third hunt comes out so that there can be this space so we don't have like overlapping or like all 3 of the hunts right here. And then we're going to make specific groups. And what I'm going to do for these groups is we're going to have our 2 tanks excluded from the hunt because they're doing this like other crazy crap. And we're going to have group 1 basically be uh, all of the group 1 in the raid and 1 person from group 5, uh, or a 1 person from. I'll like explain it better once I post, but I'm going to break it down player by player to make sure we have enough like our immunes evenly spread, tanky players evenly spread, and squishy players evenly spread. Um, but this, once we get this figured out, it only happens 6 total times in the fight. So realistically, because I'm assuming we're going to kill very quickly here at the end, where at least we should, especially if we 4 heal, which I think we absolutely will be doing. Um, the other thing that's going to be much harder is the dispels. So the dispels need to be kind of choreographed because not only does it do a pulse of AoE damage that we want to be at specific times of the fight and not at others, but we need to make sure that the debuffs are going on specific players and make sure that those specific players can do the role and know that they're going to have to do the role. So how this works is we're going to have 3 groups of 3. And these groups of 3 are going to be a healer and 2 ideally ranged or very tanky DPS or people who are going to actually respect the mechanics. I'm going to expect anybody who's part of these groups to absolutely respect these mechanics. If you have the debuff on you during your however many seconds you need to hold the debuff, you have to just go soak the puddles. So how it's going to work is the initial debuffs that come out at 12 seconds. Obviously, there's circles on the ground. They sit there for 12 seconds, and then they get absorbed. Those are going to be picked up by the healer of each group. Um, and then at 24 seconds, we're going to pass it to the first DPS. At 58 seconds, we're going to pass it to the second DPS. And at a minute 37, we're going to pass it to the third DPS, or back to the healer. And the healer is going to hold it ideally throughout this intermission because they can heal themselves. If they need to dispel themselves because they just can't live, we can also do that. but the healer should be able to sustain through the intermission. And then it's going to go first DPS, second DPS, healer, first DPS, second DPS, healer. You know, it's just going to keep going in that circle. And how we're going to make this work is we are going to use these macros for the 3 teams. And obviously we can change this. I might change the on my way ping to be like to be a different ping, to be like the sword ping. Um, but I'll show you in game. We have these 3 pings, and I'm going to put in the note something that will pop up on your screen that will say like dispel groups or something like that. Um, when that happens, the people in the groups, especially the person who currently has the debuff and the person who is going to get it next, which will take some reps to get used to, will both press their ping so they can easily find each other. And we use the 3 different colors. Like I said, I might change this blue one to be the orange one, this ping. Um, and they're going to like stack up. So like if like I'm the person with the debuff and then there's a person here, we're gonna stack up like this, and then once we visibly see that, I'll call for the dispel. And then we just keep going, and then 30 seconds later or whatever, we ping again, we stack up, we pass the debuffs, and it's just gonna keep going like that. The alternative to that is to set up like specific markers to meet up at. But I think that that is difficult because if the whole room is very cleared on this side of the map, and like we assigned like yellow and orange to be like the spots where teams meet up, that's going to be super fucked. So I think it's better to use this ping, not to mention that people are recommending that we use this ping system. And it doesn't really seem that bad to like do. And I'll share these pings, of course. Like I said, I'll probably do the attack ping and not the on my way. Um, but besides that, I added the DPS cooldowns to this, to our note, to make sure that these chains are really, really, we're not going to die through it. And another really big thing to consider is if you are someone who has movement augmenting effects, so I'm thinking like Evoker does, Shaman does, Druid does, anything that can like break a slow or anything like that, press that immediately after the chains go out. Not to mention that we have roars and like obviously we don't have the most movement ever, but we do have some movement abilities set up for these chains and for the 3rd intermission. And we just need to make sure that those are pressed and people get away from the chains as soon as they come out so that we can get the hunts away from each other. Besides that, 2 just general housekeeping things. When we get to the 3rd intermission, how this will work is like the boss will be here doing like a big frontal cone. We're going to run to like this side of the boss. Then the boss will either leap here, here, or here. If the boss leaps here or here, we will follow along with the room. Or we'll go over here. If the boss jumps over here, we will stay here because the cone will not hit us. And we will just do that. There's only 3 jumps. So if the boss jumps here, does frontal, we run here, right? And the boss jumps here, we'll run over to it. And then if the boss from here jumps to here or here, we'll move with it. If the boss jumps from here to here, we'll stay. Just to make it as easy as possible. And we might need to call different target swaps, but remember, the same as Heroic, the first 2 bosses, so the Devourer and the Havoc, will take a lot more damage, so it's important to get as much damage on the Vengeance Demon Hunter as possible when all 3 of them are out. I think that's everything. Besides that, I brought my character to Koresh just to kind of show you guys, if you have HDR or are someone who's light sensitive, kind of like me, I would highly recommend inky black potions. They will turn the arena, which kind of looks like this. It's bright, it's outside. It makes it a much better color, and I think these should work. I might be wrong on this, and these might not work, but they've worked on outdoor bosses in the past that have had really annoying, like, visible stuff. But how this, if it does work, will make a lot of the visual effects on the floor a lot more easily visible without having to, like, strain your eyes. So I'd highly recommend inky black potions. But besides that, I'll post the macros for these um, and we can get it set up. I'll post group assignments, party assignments, all that stuff, so we can get it all worked out, and it should be very good. But yeah, see you guys Tuesday.